Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the most overpowered Amon build in Borderlands 4. Now we can absolutely destroy bosses very quickly. As you see in Ultimate Vault Hunter 5, we're absolutely melting this boss in no time at all. And we get near infinite amounts of ordnance, so you can shred every single boss in the game with this. Now, a brief overview of why this is so powerful. We can actually utilize some purple weapons very well, but there's also some legendaries that are great, so I'll be covering all of this in this video. But with specific class mods, we can get some crazy damage. This one gives an increased amount of damage and ordnance damage, which is further boosted by a lot of the skills that we get in this tree. The Primal Surge here will actually restore 30% of our ammunition whenever we get a status effect on an enemy, 25% chance of this happening. And pairing into the red tree, we can apply a bunch of extra bonus cryo damage onto our attacks whenever we're berserking here. Which we will be because we're going to use this firewall here, which will boost up your projectile damage by 25% and increase the overall speed of it. And whenever you use this, it activates your berserk, and then that'll activate There Is Only Red, which is extremely powerful bonus damage, which then comes around and applies this. And with specific class mods, you can actually get some from the green skill tree with the Endless Bombardment here, which has a chance to replenish your grenades and heavy ordnances. Also with this, you get infinite amounts of overshield because of the class mod too, because we get a bunch of overshield based on the ordnance damage dealt, and we do a ton of ordnance damage, so yeah, this only continues to ramp up with all the selections here, so I'll go over to full leveling here. I've tried so many different Amon builds, and I think this is by far the strongest. So starting off from level 1 here, we're going to take Scorch Kairos. This is just really good, increasing our ordnance damage and magazine size, which is important because we can actually utilize a few other weapons here that increase damage with the amount of stickies that we apply on enemies. I'll cover that in the weapons section, so if you're curious, you can wait for that. But the tail of the common here, so whenever we deal ordnance damage, there's a chance to apply a cryo status effect that deals cryo damage over time for a duration. And this is affected by status effect application chance and has a 30% chance of procking just at natural here. And the cryo damage is 12% per damage dealt per second. This is insane. This is a big part of this. So the tail of the comet here, we can get that up to 60% of the damage dealt. There are some class mods that add a +5 to this, so you can go with that to further enhance the amount of damage. I was fine without it because I found that even without it, some of the other options that we have here are a little bit better. Now for the first augment, the cryonic thrum here is pretty nice. So whenever it's active, we taunt enemies and send no cryonic pulses, which will do ordnance damage over time, or ordnance damage to enemies, and apply a heal to our allies. And when aiming, our movement speed is reduced, but we get bonus damage cryo with guns and consumes vengeance on each gunshot. It's an okay choice. We're really not too concerned about the Scourge here, but once we get to the Battleborn, this will increase our gun damage to more full health that we have. And with the ability to get shields, we're going to have a lot of health. This is 20% extra health when we're full, and then this also doubles when we're full. So yeah, this gun damage is also going to be added to our ordnance damage using a specialization. I don't really like the rest of the skill tree here, but one thing I just want to mention here is the blackout ability. So this is actually bugged right now. It'll likely get fixed in a future update. So basically, you can only apply one of these, and there's actually another ability that's going to give us a critical hit chance on our ordnance, but once we're level 16 here, we're able to take this, so it's nice, and I'd recommend actually grabbing this right away. And next up, we're going to go down into this skill tree, but we're not going to grab the capstone because it's much better for us to have the firewall there, making our grenades shoot a lot quicker. So we're going to grab the Icy Rage. This is a kill skill, killing an enemy with cryo damage from guns or status effects will give us a stack of cryo affinity for a duration. This will increase our gun damage. So you can see there we get 6.25 per stack, 5 max stacks. This is a great boost to our gun damage, which in turn increases our ordnance damage. Now, once we get down here, it is tempting to take Winter's Kiss or Age of Ice, but I think the best choice is the Primal Surge. So whenever Amon applies a status effect to an enemy, there's a chance to partially restore his shield and ammo. So it gives you 50% of your shield and 30% of your ammunition, 25% activation chance. Absolutely crazy. This is one of the best parts of this build. It's just nuts. After this, I actually think it's best to go into our red skill tree here because the red skill tree is by far Amon's best with the Berserk being so powerful. So we want to get that. We don't care about the fire damage or melee critical hit chance. So we're actually just going to take the impetus here, which gives you, whenever you kill an enemy, you get shield regeneration rate and movement speed increases, which is nice. This gives you more survivability. Movement speed is such a nice premium to have. And we'll just take 2 stacks here of increased maximum shield capacity and over shield capacity. This further increases our survivability quite a bit. If you don't want this one, you can spec fully into that, but I like the increased movement speed. I just find it very useful for this build. And once we get to this level, I like 1 point of gut punch. This is whenever we do ordnance damage, there's a chance that we'll do a 20% more damage to them, and they'll deal 40% less damage to us. This is actually a really powerful ability. It has only a 10% chance, but if you have a fast firing ordnance, you're going to guarantee landing it. And then I like the rest of the points into the status effect damage and status effect duration, because as you remember here, we do have status effect chance and application there. So it's nice to get that extra duration and damage out of it. So we'll go 4 points into that. Now we can continue on down here. I really like the Forged in Steel. So whenever we activate our Forged skill, the Firewall, you get immunity to all damage for 6 seconds, which is actually pretty crazy, especially if you time this right. And I'm assuming in future raid bosses, this is going to be really good. If you know a boss is going to use a powerful move, you can protect yourself. But in all honesty, Battlestorm's probably a little bit better because with this, we're going to get an increase of 7.5% gun damage per stack, 5 stacks, whenever you apply a status effect. And as you remember here, we do have the Tail of the Comet, which is a status effect. So yeah, we're going to apply that pretty frequently. You can go 1 point there, 4 points in that, but I actually think for my testing, that it's a little bit better to get a little higher damage output. And at this point, we're just going to continue down into Berserk. We'll put all points into this. It gives you bonus crowd damage, which is really nice. You could take 1 stack of Bloodlust, so whenever our shield breaks, we get lifesteal, which can basically give us our health back, but I don't really care too much about that. I found just further stacks in Berserk is better. This gives us bonus 30% crowd damage whenever we activate our Forward skill, which is Firewall here, which is going to give us that increased damage from our gun and Ordnances. And whenever we have this, we also have slow immunity and the bonus crowd damage is nice because it also applies to melee, which isn't really too much of a big deal. But once we take There Is Only Red, we get a bonus 60% per kill up to a max of 600% bonus crowd damage, which is absolutely absurd. And this stacks up really crazy with our overall damage. And this takes us all the way to level 50 here. So this is a really good way to end off. And looking into class mods, there's actually quite a few. Now, I've tried so many different ones. Purple ends up being the best for Ordnance for whatever reason. It just has the better rolls. This one here had 3 really nice rolls on it, giving increased Ordnance damage. That's always a good thing. This one here will give us that overshield whenever we apply Ordnance damage. And then this one giving us the endless bombardment, refunding our grenades. Even though we already have a way of replenishing our ammunition, we got a couple different options here. This is just a really good one to use. And if you're able to get the gadgets ahoy, this will give you increased Ordnance cooldown, damage, and the whenever you do an Ordnance kill, you get 20% extra damage, which is pretty nice. So yeah, Gadgets Ahoy would be a good choice for that. Now for other class mods you could go with, there's other choices here, like the Cyborg can have some pretty nice rolls, but the Grenadier here can give you Ordnance critical hit chance, Ordnance damage 45%, and Assault Rifle damage up. This one not having the greatest rolls because it gives a +3 to gut punch. Some other choices you could potentially go with. I also don't mind going with the Affinity Stack one here. This gives you increased action skill damage and skill damage, which isn't super useful on this build, but it's an option. And being able to use your Forge skill once while on a cooldown, this allows you to get that 6 seconds of immunity if you took that. In addition to this, it's also going to give you the ability to use your Firewall twice, which is really nice. And I should mention that we don't want to grab the Glacial Rapture. It's an okay choice, but we already have tons of crowd damage, so we don't need more. And the Firewall just boosting our projectile damage by 25% is really, really good. And it also can give you fire damage, which is another status effect. And I actually dropped one, but you can add melee damage onto your action skill damage, which can be pretty nice as well. But looking into shields, I really like the Watts for Dinner. This one's just extremely powerful because this gives you overshields. This isn't the best roll on it, I want to mention. There is ones that get amped damage. That's going to be a lot better here. I've having a hard time finding one for this character. I had it on other characters, but this will give you plus 25% shock damage. That's a nice way to generate a ton of extra damage. You could also roll with the Super Soldier here whenever your energy shield is full, and we're going to have full shields pretty often. This gives you increased fire rate, movement speed, and regeneration of ammo. This one also has the Siphon here, similar to this one, but you want the Siphon and the Amp. That's kind of the most optimal roll for this. Cinder Shelly can make you pretty tanky, and the Protein Cell can give you further 40% shock damage bonus, but I think Watts for Dinner ends up being better just with how we're regenerating our shield often. Now for our enhancement, there's a couple really good choices. So we want to get gun damage because with our skill, we can add half of our gun damage boost to our ordnance damage. There's also ones that will give you splash damage and ordnance damage. Take those ones. I was having a hard time finding those. So gun damage and magazine size ended up working well for me. And I like the magazine size. I'll get to in a moment why I like the magazine size when we cover guns, because there's a lot of guns that actually complement this really well. But yeah, that's really good. I'm actually going to cover the ordnance in a second here. The triple bypass is the best Repkit. Because you get 3 charges of it. The absolute best one is the Amp, which gives a 200% increase to your damage on your next shot. This does actually apply to our ordnances. However, this is the close second. The splash damage increasing by 25% for 10 seconds. It's good enough, I guess. The Amp is much better, I just want to clarify, but I have that on other characters, and after farming for hours, I didn't end up getting one before this video, unfortunately, but nope, not today, as the red text says, but extremely powerful if you get the Amp. Now, there's a lot of ordnances. You can see here. There's quite a few. This, I really like. The Air Burst Tongue Wag. So this will explode whenever it's nearby an enemy. And you saw it can be pretty devastating because it also shoots out shrapnel. So that will propel the shrapnel forwards, dealing a bunch of extra damage that we get from our other actions, or from our skill tree. It becomes pretty crazy. It's only has 6 shots. However, we get up to 8 with our abilities here. So This is pretty nice. We also have some other ones. If you can find one that shoots out the twirling rockets, it's going to be a little bit better for us. But you can alternatively even use some of these heavier ones here, this 15 shot. The legendary ones, there's actually a few really good legendaries that we can roll with. I'm personally a huge fan if you're just doing general mobbing to go with the bottled lightning. It says low charges, but it hits around to multiple enemies. It's probably the best ordnance for just farming in general if you're doing just mobbing. The disc jockey is also good. It shoots down around those bouncing discs, and they bounce up to 5 times, getting increased damage as they continue to bounce around. If you're mobbing, this is another nice one, but against certain bosses, it's also pretty effective. The streamer is another good one. This one you can choose a certain type of elemental damage on it. It basically shoots a big beam forwards. It has a good amount of ammunition as well, and it's overall quite strong. I enjoy this one quite a bit. Although you're not going to want to go with one that has the cryo damage on it because we just have so many other ways of getting cryo damage. So you can use one that's has no damage on it, or just any other element that you find you need to cover. And especially when bosses come out in the future with certain elemental weaknesses, you could go for those. I just really like the tongue wag here. I find this one is extremely powerful. And into weapons. Now, there's actually quite a few good ones. Since we got increased gun magazine size and splash damage, any gun that has torque stickies is going to be really good. These send out sticky cryo jets that explode on reload or when switching modes and increase the damage by 2% each. You can get this one up to 4% on a Chaosin. Now, this is extremely good because this is explosion damage, so it doesn't get affected by ordnance damage, but we do get extra bonuses from some of the other abilities here, and the more that we stick onto the enemy, the better. This one comes with an Atlas underbarrel, so you can make sure that every single shot, it is 41 rounds currently, but yeah, that ends up being a 78-round magazine with the buffs that I have currently on my character, so 78 rounds, 2% increase in damage each. This can basically one-shot a lot of bosses. I also like this with the ceramic bod. If you can find a bod that has the Torg lace and stickies as well. This has 3% increase per round that hits, and it shoots 5 rounds. So that shoots, if you can get 15 of them on, that's 50% extra damage. It's actually pretty nice. This is a 6-round magazine, but with our increases to our bullets, that ends up being 11. So that's 55 potential projectiles that you can hit onto the enemy. That'll increase your damage up to 165%. But that's not even including the amount of times that we can get our ammunition replenished to further increase the damage, because it's only when we reload. So if you can get multiple of these on, it melts bosses. And the same thing here with the Aegeon stream. This does the same kind of thing, but it also has a Jacob's Lace accessory to chain around to multiple enemies. Another good weapon is Hot Slugger. This is hard to go wrong with. 30% increases in damage is really nice. Now, I want to mention something too. The ceramic bod, it actually takes the gun damage increase 25% and applies it 5 times, because this counts as a shotgun, assault rifle, sniper rifle, pistol, and SMG. That's 5 different types of weapons. So if you have ones that increase your sniper rifle damage, it actually increases bod as well. Another weapon that I really like, especially if you go down or if you're fighting against vile enemies, we do have a bunch of explosions that will destroy their vile crystals, but the wombo combo fits really nicely on here. This shoots rockets, and the damage from this is pretty nice, and you can get it in a variety of different elements to cover whatever weaknesses you may have. And I also like TK's Wave, especially if you go down. This can be nice to pick yourself back up. And if you can find the Oscar Mike with the Space Laser, that one's good too. Now for specializations, you do not need a very high specialization level. All we need is the best defense here. Since we're going to have our maximum health and shields often, this gives us 30% extra damage whenever it's affected. That's a huge boost to our damage. I also like to take the full spectrum arsenal, because this will make it so that our ordnance gets the benefits from our gun damage increases at a 50% rate. So again, that 25% increased gun damage for our enhancement, it becomes a 12.5% increase. And some of these other ones here, like if we add on Riddle You this increases your gun damage by 50% if you shoot an enemy 50 times. You can actually stack this really quickly with like the taser underbarrels, or by shooting the wombo combo, or even the Chaosin, which has very high fire rate. And this will increase your gun damage by 50%, which then it becomes 25% extra ordnance damage. So you want to do that before firing off your guns. And this one gives it the fragmented payload here, which gives your ordnance a chance to critically hit and gives them an increased critical hit chance or damage, so we can actually take out bosses extremely quickly. And again, this one is extremely effective here. So we want to mostly spec into the Gadgeteer, but you don't really need that much. I don't even really have it that high. There's heavily diminishing returns on specializations. So when it comes to combo, we want to set up our firewall here. And using the Aegeon stream here, whenever you reload, you get that massive damage. It takes all this extra shock damage, but we want to obviously use our ordnance here. So using our Repkit to get that extra damage and pulling it out, it's going to have a ton of damage. I have the streamer there, which I end up activating your ordnance or your action skill can be really nice too. So here's the streamer shooting those big beams. It can do pretty serious damage, but I found the other one is a little bit more effective. But we get pretty much near infinite amount of firing from this. So yeah, it's nuts. And with some others, we can do crazy amounts of damage. This isn't even without powering up our damage here. And this, again, will shoot pretty much infinitely. It's absurd the damage output that you get from this. And that one there is the rocket socket with that increased fire rate, 25 rounds. And it replenishes them almost immediately. And this one, as I shown off at the start, is really nice because the shrapnel hits really hard and adds up that extra damage from our shots onto the enemy. Unfortunately, I went down there, but being able to hit this, and then once we reload, it's going to destroy this boss's health bar. So yeah, with those that explode whenever you reload, you can do crazy amounts of damage here. I'm downed again, but all I have to do is just reload that there, and the health is just slowly ticking down. So yeah, with the stickies, since we're getting our ammunition back, these can be absolutely insane. So there it is. That is the most overpowered Ordnance Amon build in Borderlands 4. If this video is useful, please hit the subscribe button below. Hope you enjoyed. We'll catch you all in the next video.